From cornflakes to car insurance, everything in our lives seems to cost more than it used to, and mountain bikes have not escaped those painful price rises. So is that just the reality of riding bikes in a high inflation era, or are those evil bike companies ripping us off?
Well, we can't speak for cornflakes and car insurance here at NBR, but there is one thing that we can speak about, and that is bikes. And we have got a near 30-year archive of magazines, so we can literally chart the price of bikes over the years and figure out how much they cost and what you get for your money.
Now, you used to be a financial journalist, didn't you,
My
Julie?
sins, I'm afraid I did.
So you have a better understanding of the word inflation than I do. So can you run us through what it means?
Okay, it's really simple, Danny. It's just the increase of prices over time, simple as that. And in theory, like your salary or your savings, or if you're really lucky, your investments should kind of keep pace with that so that you don't really feel the bite of inflation. And that's kind of how it's supposed to work.
This is important to us here because what we're going to do is we're going to look at some old bike prices. Yeah. We're going to adjust those prices for inflation, and then we're going to look at modern ones and see whether they kind of tally up, aren't we? So JD, you've been looking into this. Have bike prices risen in line with inflation?
Yeah, I've looked into this. I've looked at a lot of bikes actually, Danny. I've compared a lot of bikes over the years, and I've got to say, prices have gone up more than inflation, it seems to me anyway. Let's take the YT Decoy as a case study. It came out in 2019. 5 years later, it's 2024, practically nothing really has changed on the bike in terms of the actual frame. They've definitely changed the motor for sure, but they've always kept with the top performing Shimano motor. So now it's on the EP801, they started with the E8000. So 5 years ago, the YT Decoy CF Pro Race cost £5,999. While today, the best spec YT Decoy is the Core 5 at £7,999. If you adjust that for price inflation, you can really see though that it should have cost something like £7,400, which, you know, is considerably less.
By my calculations, sounds like YT is ripping us off by about 600 quid then.
Yeah, that's what it seems like anyway. And that's not the only thing either. So the bike used to come with E13 E-Spec race wheels, which are carbon, and they've switched those over now for some alloy wheels. That's a pretty big markdown in terms of cost, isn't it? There's another point to consider though, and that is that the new YT Decoy is miles better than the old bike. I'd happily put that on record right now. So the old bike used to come with a 540 watt-hour battery. Today you get a 720 watt-hour battery. Also, the old bike used to come with a 36 fork, like a Fox 36 factory fork, the top-end one. To be fair, they didn't have the 38 back in those days, but now you get that top-end fork. So, you know, I know which bike I'd rather ride around on.
Yeah, there's a lot of improvements in components and e-bike technology that has kind of just been folded into that price, hasn't it? So you are getting upgrades.
It definitely muddies the water and makes it really hard to compare and get those kind of apples for apples thing that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and I think this is a really important point to kind of dwell upon really, is just the improvement in performance over the years. So let's really turn the clock back here to 1989.
Danny,
you probably
slip of a lad.
Even born, I don't know.
Yeah, Danny normally needs 7-year-old.
So that's when I bought my first mountain bike, right? And it had a rigid steel frame. It had cantilever brakes. Nice. It had some really clunky 18-speed gears. It was a Muddy Fox Pathfinder. It cost £330.
So not top-end bike?
Absolutely not top-end.
Sort of an entry-level kind of nuts and bolts.
Entry to mid.
Okay.
Now, if we plug that £330 into the inflation calculator from 1989, this will spit out, I think it's about £850 now. And if I look at what I could buy with £850 now, the difference is it's not even in the same universe of performance in terms of mountain biking. So, you know, I could go for a high-end sort of entry-level hardtail like a Voodoo Bazango. It'll have an alloy frame, it's got hydraulic disc brakes, it's got 29-inch wheels, it's got modern geometry, it's got modern sizing, it's got a suspension fork. I mean, you know, the list goes on. I think I could even just about get a Polygon full suspension bike for about that amount of money as well. I mean, if we're talking about the entry level to mountain biking, you know, my point would be that we've never had it so good.
Yeah, Danny, you are 100% right. I would not disagree with you on that one. I mean, I remember my first bike was an orange Clockwork, steel-framed, rigid bike, 26-inch wheels. And now, for the equivalent money today, I could get myself like a Voodoo Bazango Pro, probably, a bike I've tested and loved. It's an amazing bike, and that shows you how things have improved over the years. Okay, that's fine. That's entry-level bikes. What about those bikes that come out and that cost 12, 13, 14,000 pounds? You can't tell me that you're getting good value for money when you're paying 14k for a bike.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could really. I mean, I think these sorts of bikes are out of reach to sort of most riders. Yeah, I mean, you and I, whatever. The important point here is that you always have to pay a premium for the latest technology, in whatever field it is that you're looking at or whatever market you're looking at. There is always a premium on the latest stuff. Anyone who wants to get hold of that, anyone who's an early adopter will have to fork out for it. Yeah. Now, that stuff will trickle down. That said, if we look back at the ultimate dream bikes back in 1997, so something like a GT STS or a Cannondale Super V4000, these were like the absolute premium bikes, and they cost around about £4,000 back then. And then if we adjust that for inflation, we're looking at around £8,000.
Yeah.
So the new kind of top-end bikes are almost 50% more than that.
So, how do you explain that?
Yeah, I think what we've seen in recent years is that a new market has emerged that bike brands are tapping into. There's a new consumer out there that, what are they going to do? There are businesses, they're going to exploit people who have a lot of disposable income. And I can't really blame them for that. I mean, I would say that the extra performance you get at these price points is, minimal. It's marginal gains, right? So, law of diminishing returns, all of that sort of stuff. But they're businesses, they want to make a profit. And I think those sort of consumers aren't really bothered about those prices. And as passionate mountain bikers, we tend to sort of fixate on those prices because it's like, oh my God.
Well, they're the ones we see, aren't they? They're the ones that when they release a new bike, those are the ones that we get sent. Those are the ones that you see on YouTube. Those are the ones that, they want you to look at and like the look of. But the fact is, they're probably not really thinking even that they're going to sell that many of those bikes. We're talking, I don't know, hundreds rather than, the core bit is in the middle, isn't it? That's where you get your best value. So you're saying that there's maybe a whole nother level of top end bike that there just wasn't 20, 30 years ago. I mean, Now we've got something else on top of the top end bikes, top. I don't know what you call it now.
Yeah,
top tier.
They're kind of like hyper bikes, aren't they?
Yeah.
I guess if you look at sort of some other luxury goods, luxury markets, there are maybe you look at, let's say, supercars or something. There was a Ferrari 348 or something in the 90s, or a Porsche 911 Turbo or something that, maybe they were around about 100 grand, a little bit less or something like that. Now you look at the absolute kind of ultimate hypercars are in the millions of pounds. Okay. So it is a new form of consumer that I think didn't exist. And if you probably see in every market, there are brands that are trying to tap into those people and trying to, get them to part with their cash. So yeah, I think it is a new thing that has only happened within the last sort of 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, it's definitely, you can't pin that on inflation either. It's something that didn't really exist, I guess, before. So you can't measure it and say, hey, this is what's happened with inflation.
Yeah.
And the price of bikes could have been so much higher as well, right? It's like we've had the emergence of the direct sales brand into the market in the last 10, 15 years. And that's dropped the price of those bikes by maybe 30%, would you say? And it's that competition from those direct sales bikes that's driven down the price as well of kind of bricks and mortar, traditional bricks and mortar stores selling bikes.
I would totally agree. It's a really competitive market out there. And no one can sort of rest on their laurels, because as consumers we can vote with our feet, right? We can, if someone's charging an obscene amount of money for a bike, there's always something else there being offered by some other brand, so...
Yeah, you don't have to buy it. It's like, just because that £14,000 bike is there doesn't mean you have to buy it.
Exactly, and there are, as you say, alternative sales models that bring with them quite significant savings. You may have to sacrifice some, personal service, let's say, with a retailer, and some people are kind of quite happy to do that. Some people prefer to be kind of guided through the sales process.
Wined and dined for the
exactly. Yeah.
But some people just want the bike.
You have that choice. You didn't have that choice in 1990 or even 2000. I think these sales models came in around sort of 2010, 2011. Really, they started to sort of emerge and become mainstream. And it's had an absolutely massive impact on the market.
Yeah, to me, it seems like it's the reaction to those disruptors that's had the biggest effect, hasn't it? The normal brands have had to react and adjust their pricing and sort of improve the offering to the customer.
They have. They've cut distributors out, so they've taken these margins out. They've gone to having kind of concept stores. They've been a little bit more. They've definitely been more ruthless with dealer networks, and almost the two are converging. The two different sales models are converging. You've got the direct sales brands that have people like Canyon have grown enormously, and with that increases overheads, it increases their cost base, and then you have the kind of the bricks and mortar brands that have tried to sort of make their business as efficient as possible and cut out any kind of costs that they can to just narrow that gap.
Yeah, they're coming together, aren't they? That's for sure. Like you look at direct sales brands and you see the number of models they offer now and the number of sizes they offer of each model. It's grown hugely, hasn't it? And they've kind of touched down with physical presence in countries as well. You've got the YT mill in Surrey and Propane.
They have 3, I think now. It's 2 in America and 1 over here.
And Propane has the new store in Surrey as well, the concept store.
Yep.
So you can see them coming together closer and closer.
Yeah, and this is another point that we kind of almost touched on there as well, is that this increase in options for consumers really increases prices as well. So if you have, maybe let's say you used to have 3 frame sizes, that was a lot cheaper than having 5 frame sizes. If you had 2 different wheel options, again, that increases the cost to the manufacturer.
Yeah, same with models. You got to ship. We got more complication. You got to ship more stuff. You got to hold more stock. You got to do a lot more work in terms of like R&D and stuff. So
and now you have most mountain bike brands will have to have various different analog bikes, different travels and intended uses, and then they will have to have a similar range of electric assisted bikes as well that matches that. So everyone's kind of almost doubled the ranges.
Yeah, it's complicated.
And all of those things add to the costs. All these things got thrown into the mix and have brought prices up. I mean, we could even, we're just getting specific to the UK here, but we could even talk about Brexit. That's increased costs and reduced the number of brands available in the UK as well. A lot of direct sales brands have had to kind of sacrifice this market. So lots of things have happened.
So what happens next then, Danny? Have we reached the limit? Have we got to that glass ceiling? Or are we going to push through and kind of get to, 20 grand for a bike? Are we there yet?
Well, I guess road bikes, you're pretty much approaching that, aren't they? And you could argue that they have a lot less technology than mountain bikes, but I definitely think we won't see the end of 10 grand bikes going forward. But I think where the market is in now, there's still an oversupply of bikes to the market. So we're still going to see lots of big discounts being applied. So I think anyone in the market is still going to be able to pick up some really good bargains for the next year or so.
It's a good time to be a bike buyer, isn't it? That's for sure. Okay, Danny, time to go back to the first question that we posed, which is, are bike brands ripping us off? Are they gouging us for our cash, or are we still getting good value for money?
Well, I think if we talk in terms of performance, the bikes that we have now are so much better than anything we had 10, 20, 30 years ago. But I think, we can't definitively say all bike brands are ripping us off or all bike brands are not ripping us off. I think we can say that you can find amazing value for money bikes, really competitive prices, even without figuring in discounts. to the equation. And you can also find bikes that are, maybe poor value for money and out of reach of most people and do not provide the amount of kind of bang for buck that others do. So I think that's just, what you find in any market. So I don't think we can be so kind of...
it's not black and white, is it?
We can't polarize it like that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think bikes are definitely better than they used to be in almost every way. But the fact that there are so many sales at the moment, there's so many discounts, and it's been going on so long, does tend to tell you they have been overpriced or overinflated for a while. So this is just, the market correcting that, which is the way it should work.
Well, I think that's over to you now. What do you think? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? We would love to know. Let us know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.